want to open up, this is our second of our Alberta Mentorship Program community call, and it's really just been a space that we want to invite people to who are interested in career mentorship and how they might get that going in their organization, just to be available to ask questions and connect you with the kind of resources that we've made available on the Alberta Mentorship Program website. And so one thing we have done is just go around to introduce ourselves and sort of where we're from. I know we just did that a bit informally before Doug could join us, but maybe Doug, we'll start with you. You're in my bottom square on my screen.
Oh, wow. I feel like I don't know, you guys are probably way too young for this, but there was a old program called Hollywood Squares, and it used to be kind of a game show, and there was like, it almost looked like tic-tac-toe, you know, so you'd have like, you could have do a tic-tac-toe game. And you guys are probably looking at me going, what the heck are you talking about?
Alf was always in the middle.
But anyway, yes, and it's Stella.
So yeah, Stella from YMC Employment Link.
Great. Hi, Stella and Maddie. Great to meet you both. And my name is Doug Piquette, and I'm the Executive Director of Edmonton Region Immigrant Employment Council, otherwise known as ERIEC. And so I'm the founding director and have been involved with mentorship since 2009.
Wow, perfect.
Val, go ahead.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Doug. So my name is Bao Ho. I'm based in Calgary. I work with the Calgary Region Immigrant Employment Council, also known as CRIEC. I've been with CRIEC for 2 years. I'm a mentoring partnership coordinator, and I work with our strategic partners. I'm kind of subbing in our executive director, our founding executive director, Bruce Randall, wasn't able to make it today, and I believe he was in last week's meeting as well. I've been with CRIEC for 2 years, but I've actually been involved in the immigrant serving sector in Calgary since 2013, where I actually was working for a different mentoring program, the integrated mentoring program by Immigrant Services Calgary. So I've worked with mentoring in about several different programs now. And it's very nice to meet you as well, Stella and Maddie.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Stella, are you yourself here?
So I am a career employment with YMCA. So we are trying to start a mentorship program starting in March. So we are trying to get some skills, some ideas how to start the program. So we are almost there, but we are having some issue to get mentors. So this is why I'm here, and then just get some information, get some skills to keep going. That's it.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Stella.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're having another kind of, the link in one instance is working and not another. So I'm just inviting people in.
Hi, Annette.
Yeah.
Hello. I see some familiar faces and new ones. So.
And so I'm sorry, Maddie, did you?
Yeah, just yes. You know, I think for mentorship, really now I'm working as a research engineer at Canadian Energy Research Institute. And my experience for mentorship, it was during my PhD, that mentoring, you know, the undergraduate students, and we have some, you know, undergraduate and postgraduate students at CRIEC. So just invited me to this session, and I'm from myself, I'm available if you need my experience, you know, to be mentor for your client. I work for a long time at the industry. I've been for 3 years working at the Continental in Germany, Netherlands. Mostly I'm a design and mechanical engineer. So I have, you know, both academic and also industry work experience, plus the research that I've done through my education and also last 2 years. So hope I can lend a hand, you know, to everybody that needs.
Great. Thanks, Maddie, for taking time to join us on the call.
Yeah,
that's great. We're just doing introductions. So Tyler, you've taken the new place at the bottom square. So I'll ask if you could introduce yourself next.
Hi there, my name is Tyler. Sorry about the delay getting in. I was having a bit of technical issues, but I'm here now, and I work as an employment practitioner at Lethbridge Family Services. So we were one of the organizations that was initially part of the pilot project with AMP. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Great, thanks. And Annette, I'll ask you to introduce yourself as well.
Hi there, I'm Annette Wierstra, and I have been working with the Alberta Mentorship Program, creating all the content and a lot of the stuff you're reading on the website, and working with Tyler and other people who are involved in our pilot projects, trying to help them have the tools and pieces they need to get the mentorship stuff going. So I'm mostly here to listen and write up a summary in an article and capture some of the knowledge that you all will be sharing today. So
great, thanks. And Cinnamon, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Cinnamon Stacy. I'm with the Government of Alberta in Alberta Labour and Immigration's Newcomer Supports area. And I'm just here to listen and learn.
Okay, great, thanks. And so just really briefly for people who've just joined, we are recording because we'll use this recording as an educational asset on the website. But the format for this is fairly informal. We wanted a kind of friendly space for people to ask questions and just to share their perspective and knowledge and background around career mentorship to getting that going. And so I'll just check in with Stella and with Maddie, whether there was anything they wanted to kind of start with as a question to bring forward. I know with the people who, Bo and Doug and Tyler, who have been involved in doing it at a program level, they have tons to share, but it's always great to start with your questions. So if you had a question you wanted to open with, please go ahead.
Yes, so we are starting a program about mentorship just to connect people here who has experience, like their working experience with the career. And because we work with newcomers, and most of them, they are immigrant, they don't have any idea. They don't have any idea about networking or so on. So I'm just here to get information. How can we help those people to connect? We have like a big list of mentees, people who are really looking for help about education and career, but to get mentors, it's not an easy thing, especially here in Fort McMurray, as people are so busy. So yeah, maybe get some tools and skills, maybe will help us to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can share my experience because it's not a long time that I'm in Calgary, even in Canada, I think, yeah, I can say I attend many mentorship programs before joining and finding my job. But I don't want just to bring here my negative points, but I say these points because maybe help the others because I went through the whole way. I really couldn't find a good mentorship program I don't name the name of the organization that I've been there, but really they couldn't find a mentor that can help me. They introduced me, for example, my background was manufacturing. They tried to find some mechanical engineer, but I really didn't get too much, tips that can help me. Sometimes working on my resume, they say you shouldn't write the whole, for example, experience. Sometimes you're overqualified. There are some common tips from all of them, but nothing main that can help me. But just here, I want to appreciate the CRIEC program. It was one of the perfect program that I attend. If I don't make mistake, Bruce was the responsible, just making some meeting with some companies, and just take the clients there. We communicate, we network. We pass resume to really the persons, for example, working in that industry. We ask directly our questions. And it was perfect. It was perfect. I never forget, different events that it was done by CRIEC. And through, I can say, each of that CRIEC programs that I went and events, I learned some things. And even the current job I found through one of the networking events through the CRIEC. But regarding the mentorship programs, I think, as Stella talking about finding a good mentor. I don't mean that there isn't. Sure, we have huge, experts and professionals in this city. But how we can find a good mentor that, match with our client is very difficult. To help, to guide, to show the way to him, because as a newcomer, really is very difficult to find yourself, especially when you have, a career planning. So to finding and matching the clients with the mentors is very important. And I think the mentorship through some networking and events will be better. Otherwise, for example, they ask, Maddie, okay, pass your resume. We try to find a mentor for you. And sometimes, they find a mentor that never, even say me what I should do, just some tips on my resume. So just go through the networking, just go through the LinkedIn, some common tips that we can find them through the net. So no need even, go through the mentorship programs. So I think, this is my experience. I'm not sure about the other clients, but at the beginning, it was very difficult for me. I'm under, for example, 3-4 mentorship by 3-4 different organizations, but none of them was really very helpful for me.
Maddie, I can understand and empathize a little bit with I guess that whole connection piece between getting somebody who is a good fit for you and your needs. One of the things, and I think Val, maybe you might want to chime in, but one of the things that we have as challenges is finding sometimes the right mentor. So Stella's question about recruitment of mentors is a good one. We had this conversation last week too, and it's not easy finding. There are certainly willing people to that come to us, want to volunteer, and when we do our programming, it's about peer-to-peer relationships. So Maddie, I know what you're saying is like trying to find somebody who fits your background and your aspirations for work here in Canada. So sometimes I know for our office, we've had challenges and we try to get as close to a match as possible. And for some people who are really highly qualified, who have their PhDs, it is really difficult for us at times to find somebody who's at that level. So sometimes we have to kind of compromise and adjust a little bit to that matching system. So we try to find somebody who may be of similar cultural background, may have similar professional background. So we look at all of the elements of the client and see where we could actually find some good synergies. So and sometimes we find the mentor who's just spot on, perfect match for the mentee, and it's just really kind of a coincidence and good fortune, and that we can do that. So it's for us as a program here in Edmonton, it's an ongoing challenge to find people, and then once you do find them, try to find the right match for the client. So I don't know, Bao, if you wanted to add to that.
Oh, absolutely, and I really appreciate both comments, both from Maddie and from Stella. I think there is definitely a distinction here. I think Stella was asking about mentor recruitment, and there's a whole lot of learnings that we've learned at CRIEC, and I'm sure Doug and Eric could also speak to the amount of learnings that we've learned over in the number of years since we opened our doors. A lot of strategies we've tried, a lot of strategies that haven't quite been successful. And then, of course, there's what Maddie was speaking to. Once we have our mentors, how to do an appropriate match. And currently, a lot of my responsibilities at CRIEC involve that matching piece. So I always know it's sometimes it's a challenge. You need to find that right alchemy of personalities. Oftentimes, when I speak with our clients directly, I speak to the fact that our program isn't transactional in nature, that yes, our mentors can support you with information, our mentors can support you with networking opportunities to practice and develop your networking skills, but that's done within the context of relationship. So sometimes it is tricky, but I find that when our mentees have that expectation going in and knowing that the relationship is key, and once I build a strong relationship, then that's when I really feel supported. With respect to what Stella was speaking to, mentor recruitment strategies, I know with CRIEC, at some point there was a critical mass that, you know, we tried a lot of different options, a lot of different strategies. At the heart of them was always starting with our existing relationships. You know, Bruce had a lot of existing relationships, new staff members as they came on, our board members, we looked at those. So early on, we were just talking about Bruce is very big about the sit-down meeting over a cup of coffee. And I know we can't do that now given COVID, but there are virtual meetings, and it's just that connecting with the people you know and building outward, and just coming in with that ask and letting them know that CRIEC is an organization, we are looking for mentors. Now, that of course is just the initial step, just identifying and targeting and finding potential mentors. What was really effective is once we started getting a narrative and building our vernacular around why one should mentor, sharing the immigrant experience, sharing the newcomer professional story, having that resonate with the people we communicated to so that they wanted to be involved in what we're doing. So one thing we did very early on was just get an idea of what our organization did, what our story was, and then invite others to be part of that.
I agree, and I think that, and I know Tyler could probably speak to this as well, because he's kind of one of the rookies of the year this year, coming in with a new program and had similar questions, but I'm just going to speak a little bit to that too. It's a little bit of trial and error in terms of how we approached sort of recruitment. I think what Bao said too is having a good understanding of how to articulate your program. So Stella, in your case, as you're putting this program together, being able to articulate it, and either from sort of looking at it from a structural point of view as a program, or if you have mentored yourself, sort of that kind of personal experience and what the value is. I mean, Maddie can speak to that as well. She had some failed experiences or missed the mark, but then she shopped around and she found a program like CRIEC that hit the mark and it fit for her. So I think that's also a good example too, that even for Eric, when we started back in 2009, I cannot say that all of our mentored experiences were absolutely spot on, perfect, and help people, help them to raise themselves up to requiting their careers here in Canada. Sometimes, I mean, we're talking about human dynamics. We're talking about human personalities. So some people who are mentors are exceptional and have a natural penchant for being good at transferring information, being a good listener, and really understanding, being empathetic of what the challenges are. Most people who volunteer for our programs just by virtue of them applying, we know that these are people who have thought about mentorship and feel they have some of the skill sets that are appropriate for being a mentor. So they've already filtered themselves out. We're not asking people who are really stretching and saying, geez, I'm not sure if this is really made for me. Maybe they're introverted and they don't speak very much. These are people that have some of those skill sets already, and they're ready to be connected with somebody. And I'm not saying they're professional mentors, if there's such a thing, but I mean, but they're already taking the journey. by being involved with programs like CRIEC and ERIEC and in Lethbridge and Fort McMurray. There's interest already there. So for Stella, it's when you're at the beginning stages, this is tough because you've got a program that you're working on. You've got to have some credibility, and that took us a little while to develop in our early days. And once we had some credibility, people started, well, what's this CRIEC program or what's this ERIEC program? Tell me more. And so being able to tell the story, as Val said, being able to give that story is really important. And then you can start, getting people on board. Tyler, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that, being a newbie.
Sure, I certainly can. And yeah, very similar to what everyone has talked about already. For us, being in a smaller center, which it sounds like for yourself would be quite similar, we have always worked with internationally educated professionals, but we received new funding this year, I guess it'd be last year now as we're into 2021, to expand our employment program and our services. So once we received that funding, now we had kind of the new demographic of working with employers and service providers, sort of that other half of the equation when it comes to supporting internationally educated professionals in entering the workforce. So of course, mentorship is a big part of that. So for us now looking to, expand our influence, so to speak, into, working with employers and service providers, we rely heavily on our already established partnerships with other like-minded organizations or community partners that have more of a direct relationship with employers. So we already were working indirectly with a few organizations like our local immigration partnership, Economic Development Lethbridge, the Lethbridge Chamber, the City of Lethbridge, as well as some other mainstream employer services here in Lethbridge. And so once we received the funding, we really reached out to them as kind of a way to start to connect with employers. And we've had a lot of success in going through kind of those partners because they are, kind of the subject matter experts when it comes to employers that are looking to get involved in supporting newcomers. So it was a very easy transition for whether it was, an e-introduction or a Zoom call, whatever kind of online platform is applicable now. And we found that really there was a lot of, support for, connecting with employers that want to support internationally educated professionals. They're just looking for ways to do that. And a mentorship program is certainly one way of many that employers or even sometimes just an individual can reach out and make a large impact on a newcomer to Canada. So if you have already established partners, I would rely on them at least in the beginning stage, because even though Lethbridge Family Services as an organization has been around for over 100 years, our employment program was brand new, and so we were starting kind of from the ground up. But we had all those already established relationships that we relied very heavily for connecting with a new demographic of employers and service providers that were readily available to help and wanting to help.
So I have sorry, Cheryl, just before that. So Tyler, it must have been daunting for you at the beginning as it is for Stella and for maybe Fort McMurray as they approach this. Where do you start? And you probably had that kind of auspicious beginning where it was like, okay, we've got some funds, we're ready to go now. But it sounds like you guys already had something that allowed you to connect with elements of the business community already. And then you had to shape this new mentorship program. But was it daunting for you? It must have been like, oh, holy crap, what do we got to do first?
For sure, yeah. And for us, it was something that we kind of were doing for quite a while off the side of our desk informally. We didn't have funding in place. We didn't have, those established connections or partnerships. It was people that, through either different committees or, various community meetings, you were kind of informally connected with. And so when we got the funding finally, we knew that we had to utilize some of those supports, that there was no way we were going to be successful on our own. It just would not work. And of course, reaching out through the Alberta Mentorship Partnership really helped for establishing a lot of the best practices and, avoiding a lot of the mistakes that we probably would have run into, if we were trying to start it from the ground up on our own, especially when it comes to a lot of, whether it's the forms or whether it's, recruiting practices, things like that, because for us, what we had did previously was really just through word of mouth. We would just, very similar to a lot of our other services, we would just kind of ask internally of, staff members, board members, things like that. But once we formally launched it, the program just got so large that wasn't sufficient to meet the need. So for us, as where we started, it started with 3 or 4 kind of mentorship matches that were really done off the side of our table to now actually having a way to track goals, to track some of our outcomes and make sure that the needs of both the mentors and mentees are being met. And it also provides a little bit of accountability to our funders as well, because previously when you're kind of doing it off the side of your desk, it's any outcome is kind of great because you don't really need to meet any targets. But now we really want to make sure that we are using those funds appropriately and really helping to establish hopefully some of the internationally educated talent to stay in Lethbridge so that we don't lose it to the Calgarys and Vancouvers and Torontos.
I do want to add on something that Tyler spoke to. When you have successful outcomes, or maybe you start with 5 partnerships, that becomes 5 alumni of your program. And we've seen quite a lot of success of mentees after they've had success and a positive experience with us, returning to CRIEC after a number of years, after they've had enough experience in the marketplace that they've built up a body of knowledge that they can support a new mentee with. We consider a big mark for our success that we have a lot of mentee alumni returning. Now, it's kind of has a multiplying effect because the mentors who are partnered with your mentees, they become available again to be mentors for new mentees. So I had an old director in a job that I had that said, when an intern came on, they said, squeeze that intern for all they're worth. So when we have mentors, we want to keep them engaged. We want to make sure the experience is valuable for them. We upskill them. We have programming aimed directly to our mentors and our mentors alone, actually, so that the experience is good for them and that they will return and mentor other people as well. From a recruiting standpoint, we always approached it that every mentor who comes back to mentor again is one less you have to recruit from scratch.
And so I just want to interject, Stella, absolutely, if you have other questions, please speak up. But as I'm thinking about what I've heard from Doug and Bao and Tyler, what's clear to me is like the key to the success in recruitment is about relationships. So my question is, when you're just starting to build those, or when, I've heard sort of, we have the relationship, and so this was just another way that we work together. What do you think was really helpful for you at the beginning, to start to build those relationship connections? Because I definitely hear once you get going, it gets a little easier, right? But there's that first kind of hurdle to get over to have these conversations about there's a valuable opportunity here to be a mentor and to work with us as an organization. So could I ask you to speak to that piece?
Yeah, I think it's it's creating that connection, creating that relationship. So we are starting from there with other program, other organization. So we are going more closer to us to be able to go slowly with the time. I think creating relationship, creating that connection, I think it would be helpful. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, so we are working on that, get connected, and then, yeah, and then we have to create that story, like to get mentors that they will be interested, and we have to create that good story and then keep going. As I say, it's about engagement. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a really good, I think a good reminder or touchstone for yourself is that this is a story.
Yes.
It's a program, but it's a story, and it's got a good happy ending to it. If you know, once you've told the story and showed by bringing two people together, makes a difference for at least the person that is coming in with, let's say, I don't want to use the word deficits, but I mean, maybe lacking certain things, the connections, the knowledge on how to integrate into Canada or integrate into their new position. And so your job is to try and make that connection happen. And then the magic occurs when those two people get together and have that interchange of information. And you guys would provide a little bit of, you know, some of the these are the 3 or 4 things we would like for you guys to have discussions on. At least talk about that. You know that they're going to talk about everything else too. Once the relationship starts, there'll be other subjects in there. But if you give them 2 or 3 things that they should really sort of focus in on, then you know that story is going to elaborate on its own by just putting those 2 people together. So I like the way you're framing it, Stella.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, when you're from a recruitment standpoint, when you're speaking to potential mentors, you're telling a story. You're telling a story about the impact of mentoring, the effectiveness of mentoring. But ultimately, your mentees can tell a more effective story than you can. Or if you've had that mentoring experience or a mentee experience, you can share about that. So we found it very key to build these assets and collect these stories so that not only are we the ones telling potential mentors these stories, we can then share these stories that our mentees had. And not just the mentees, because ultimately at the end of the day, one of the ones we discovered is that mentors, well, at least our mentors, they were absolutely involved for that. We call it a psychosocial benefit. They want to pay it back. But when we polled and inquired and spoke more to our mentors, what we found is they didn't want recognition. They didn't want the pat on the back, but they did want something from it. They wanted development of their own skills. So once we started speaking the mentor stories, talking about how the mentors got just as much from the experience, and then again, sharing a mentor who would speak to that specifically, then we were able to tell a lot of really persuasive stories, and people really wanted to be involved in what we were doing. So it's a great starting point to build those marketing assets, if you will, or that collection of stories.
I have one suggestion, again, according to my experience. The whole mentorship programs that I attended, never they ask me, for example, Maddie, do you know anyone that we choose that guys as your mentor? You know, I think the mentees can suggest even, for example, someone from the same fields to the, mentorship program. So you can make better relation with the mentors. Even just mentees, wants to connect directly. So my suggestion is that, for example, when the mentees come to the programs, so it's better get their ideas if they know somebody that think she or he will be helpful for her. So at least they can provide. It doesn't mean that, for example, when she or he passed the list to you, the mentees, you can connect to all of them, but at least you have some ideas. Maybe some of that, the mentors accept to be the mentor for that mentee, and this is, will make the way for the mentee shorter, to the goal that he or she has. So one idea will be, just ask the mentee to help the story that you're talking about even not just story, also it can be happen the names of the mentors that she feel they will be helpful for her or him. So this will be also a point you can consider in your program.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so here we are, a number of sort of organizations that run formalized mentorship programs. And one of the advantages of having a formalized program is, we've got some tools set up, we've got some abilities to even have a network of cohorts of people, a number of people together, so that creates another type of network. I think, I'm just thinking about Madi and her search for a mentor. It doesn't, like, people can do this on their own. You can find mentors. I've got mentors, and I don't belong to a formal mentorship program. And it doesn't have to follow a certain recipe. It's just, these are people that I can talk to as I approach a problem or maybe an idea that I have. It's just basically putting two people together. The formalized program has some advantages because there's some great tools, some great research, some great stuff that's been consolidated over the years that you can go to and use. So I guess we're here trying to create new formalized programs, and I think that's awesome. But it doesn't preclude people from doing their own research. What are your expectations? What would be your own expectations out of a mentored relationship? And so that when you get one, then you know how to articulate. This is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of advice or the questions that I have, or some of the barriers that I'm facing. How to articulate that for yourself, so you can use it informally or you can use it formally.
Yeah, just I add one thing. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Just for example, when I want to make my individual's connection and networking, is very difficult. But when it comes to some formalized program, I'm sure, for example, that professionals and experts feel better, to communicate through you, for example, to be my mentors, rather than directly I just ask them, to be my mentor, because I see that there is some agreements, there is some limitations, everything is clear in that agreement. So if for sure through a program, it will be better, choosing the mentors for mentees, even suggested mentors.
Mm-hmm. One of the things, Stella, too, and I think Tyler had mentioned it, and the same for ERIEC and CRIEC, we are focused in on, sort of permanent residents and skilled immigrants or internationally trained professionals. And in Fort McMurray, you mentioned that, there's a lot of immigrants. So one of the things that if you've got a broad grouping of mentees at different levels in terms of their English ability, there are different levels of their own formalized background, whether they've gone to university or not, that makes it a little bit challenging in terms of how do I find a mentor for somebody who, let's say, is not formalized skilled immigrant, and how do I match them up with somebody who can work with somebody who has maybe challenges with English. So I guess in some ways we have a bit of an advantage in the programs that we run here in Edmonton and Calgary and as well in Lethbridge, is that we are focusing in on a certain group. We're focusing on the professionals. And one of the things that we were getting, and this goes back to your original, Stella, your original question about recruitment. So when we're looking for mentors, a lot of mentors came to us and said, well, are these mentees ready? Are they employment ready? Do they have English skills? Do they have a professional background? So the criteria for our programs narrowed it down a little bit so that we were looking for mentors who would be able to work with a mentee and they speak at a similar level. If you have a CLB level 2 or 3, it's going to be hard for a mentor who is an accountant, let's say, working with somebody who has their, their English skills or their French skills could be, still very challenging. So the mentored relationship may be, they may not be successful or as successful if the expectations aren't there. So knowing your criteria for your mentorship program is going to be very important. And you have to decide that. I mean, I know you've got lots of immigrants, but can you serve all of them in a mentorship relationship? So if maybe for the skilled ones or the ones with higher English levels, then you might be able to focus your mentorship program for that.
Yeah.
If you have underskilled ones and lower language level clients, then you may want to look at some other kind of intervention or some other kind of program for them. Because what you don't want is a mentor leaving your program going, oh my God, they didn't have any of their English skills or their language skills. I can't communicate to them. This is not working very well. And so what you want is them to be, your job is to set the criteria, whatever you think you can work with, and then you can now sell the program to a mentor and say, these people, we've gone through them, they've applied, we've talked to them, we know where their English levels are, their French levels are, and they're ready. And they also have a professional background. They work back home. But if you have somebody who has no professional background back home and their English skills are low, then you're going to have big challenges to get them involved with, let's say, a mentorship program.
Can I ask Stella, what kind of, do you know what kind of framework your mentoring program is going to be built around? Is it internationally trained professionals or is it skilled tradespeople? Or?
So it's international though, because we have people here in Fort McMurray, we have people who are coming from everywhere. So they're educated though, but the challenge we are having is the communication. Those people, they are graduated, but you can see that they have some language barrier, depending where they are coming from. So this is a big issue, and then that's what we are working on, just to get those criteria before we start matching. So we have to make sure that they are able to understand the communication will go easily. But they are, on education, they are educated. We have people who are educated. The problem is the language. The speaking is another thing.
I was actually part of another organization in which there was a mentoring program that was aimed at lower skilled workers. And what we found was what Doug pretty much described. There were a lot more challenges from a mentor satisfaction standpoint. So what we ended up doing, and out of necessity, the program design involved a lot more programmatic activities in which staff would run workshops and just to prepare a client for meeting a mentor. And Doug spoke to this, of course, that when you're working with internationally trained professionals, it's kind of easier for us because there's that motivation and that drive that almost one would expect working with someone from that population, and the language level tends to be higher as well.
Yeah, and looking at, and I know in Fort McMurray this would be the case, and I know even in Edmonton many years ago we looked at the possibility of working with tradespeople, and so there's it like you starting from the beginning, we were there as well. Then as we advanced and thought, okay, well, let's expand the mentorship program everywhere, where because this works, this is an amazing program. How can we get this to the tradespeople? I mean, anybody who's working, who's international, or from the immigrants, how can we get this up? And it was, when we started doing some preliminary investigation in terms of, let's say, the trades, and I was talking to certain groups within the city of Edmonton, a lot of them had their own challenges as representatives of, let's say, trades. Like they don't even have enough time to try and provide training to some of the tradespeople, let alone make some time for, let's say, a mentorship program. And by nature of the, let's say, the trades program, you have that sort of journeyman and apprentice relationship, like, and then, like teaching, you're a teacher and a student kind of thing. But they already embedded in the nature of the relationship is already that sort of journeyman apprentice kind of thing. So how, they would ask me, well, how would a mentorship program, sort of benefit them? And, I talk to them about sort of the international or intercultural differences, communications wise, and having that kind of training for, let's say, a journeyman and also for apprentice would be great. That was my idea, like an ideal dream world would be great to have both the journeyman and the apprentice to have that. But I think it was a little bit more challenging than I ideally expected. And so if you're looking at the apprenticeship, or I'm sorry, the trades, it may be challenging in that way because there's already some jurisdictions, there's already some people doing work in that area. I would argue that they're probably not doing a lot of intercultural work, because you hear stories of people, in the trades, having their difficulties with the people they're apprenticing under. So that's why I think in our case, let's say in the 3 programs, we've narrowed the playing field a little bit, because those are places we can kind of control a little bit, because we know that we can meet the criteria and serve the mentor with a client that is pretty much ready, needs a little bit of nudging and some information to take them to the next level. If we had to deal with somebody who had a low language skill ability, we certainly wouldn't have, it would be helpful, but I don't think we would have the success that we've had in our programs.
Tyler, you had mentioned that, sorry, I'm just seeing the chat here, that you mentioned there was something to add as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I certainly can talk a lot more about, and Doug had touched on a little bit of those that are, what you would call employment ready versus those that are not employment ready. And here in Lethbridge, we certainly work a lot more with those that are not employment ready than I would say, Calgary or Edmonton. And for us, you can have very, very successful mentorship programs for those that are not employment ready if you are very clear on the expectations going into that mentorship. So we have mentors that have successfully mentored individuals that are employment ready, and those that have successfully mentored those that are not employment ready. And that comes down to a very strong needs assessment by the practitioner, and being very upfront with expectations with that individual as well. So we kind of think of it as a progression. Here in for myself, we offer a lot more services other than just mentorship. Mentorship is one very powerful tool that we do have at our disposal, but being very clear on what the expectations of both parties going into a mentorship match will be very important in how both parties feel at the end of that match, if it was a success or not. So, not every mentorship's, goal is that they're going to get a job right after that. They're not at that level yet, which is okay, because the mentorship program is there to help them still progress towards their more long-term goals. And if you're going to be working with individuals that are not yet employment ready, so for my, one example is I'm working with a lot of engineers that are at more of that CLB 4 to 6 range. They're not yet licensed with a PEGA. They're going through that process. And, there's lots of ways that mentorship can help them. I work extensively with them on things like Canadian soft skills, but I'm not an engineer, so I can't talk anything technical with them. And that's something that our mentors that are looking to support internationally educated professionals that are not employment ready help with. How can they convey their work experience in the format that a Canadian engineer will? I can help them with things like the STAR method of behavioral interviewing. I can make sure that they're organizing their experience in the way that a mainstream Canadian would, but I can't really tell how their accomplishments or work experience line up with the equivalent here in Canada. And that's really how our mentors that are working with individuals that are not employment ready approach it. And if both parties go into that mentorship understanding that these are the goals we are going to work on, then by the end of that mentorship, both parties still view it as a success, even though, it wouldn't be the same, as, hey, we found a job as a professional engineer, things like that with someone that is employment ready. But without that mentorship program, that individual is likely never going to progress past the stage that they're at. So I would say we certainly have had a lot of success for mentorship with those that are not in the employment ready sphere as of yet, and some of them are moving more towards that employment ready in their professional background. So I just wanted to add that.
That's great, Tyler. I was just thinking, our mentors are not by any means career counselors. They're folks that are just volunteering. They have lived experience, and they're going to pass that lived experience on. And I think we have to be careful with the expectations. I think both Bao and Tyler have said that, keeping expectations couched. I mean, keeping people just realistic about the expectations of what this mentoring relationship's about. We often tell our clients, or the mentor and the mentee, it's about getting work, but it's not about getting work. It's about feeling empowered. It's about getting confidence. It's about getting the information you need to make an informed decision. That's what we're really hoping happens in those relationships. So, keep that in mind. Keep those expectations in mind. And there was one other thing I was going to mention, but it's just slipped my mind. We also have to remember too that our mentors are volunteers, and so I think when Maddie had mentioned earlier about some missteps on some other mentorship programs. Imagine ourselves as people who are managing programs. We're trying to get people to volunteer for these kinds of things, and sometimes those relationships, don't hit the mark. But I think at the very least, if you have a mentored relationship with somebody, it's incumbent upon the mentee to do a little bit of homework and figure out what kind of key questions they want to ask. And it could be a kind of a co-journey. If in the mentor's case and the mentor may not have some of the background or maybe that lived experience yet, but they have a willingness to help. And that's a start. And so if they know the kinds of right questions or the right resources to go to, at least, if it was you and I, Stella, I would just say, what, I really don't know how to answer your question, but how about if we promise to meet next week, and I'll do a little bit of research, you do a little bit of research, and we'll have a discussion on it, and we can share the information that we discovered on our own. So we can't expect mentors to be the magical wizard of getting us to a job. But it could be something, at least in the mentee's case, they feel that they're not alone, and they're doing this journey together with a mentor who has some experience and is willing to be your your cheerleader.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's in our case too. It's not about getting a job. It's about getting just connect, getting more information, get skills, and then that's all it's our basic.
And some ideas as to what is the path. I have no idea what the path is. And so the mentor can be, I think the path could be this, it could be that. But at least now you're boiling it down to maybe 1, 2, 3 paths, or maybe just one. But I mean, before that, you had no idea. You just saw, oh my God, just huge challenges, and I have no idea where to go. I don't know where to take my first step.
So I noticed that we're getting pretty close to the top of the hour. Great conversation today. I really like how some of the distinctions have been drawn to help really focus the kind of preparation and working with recruiting mentors and working with mentors. we definitely, a juicy takeaway is this piece about getting really clear about what's the definition of success and progress, and the important part of having the expectation at the beginning, so that you know, it's everyone's set up to be working towards the same thing. The comment I'll make, just for my own background in working, you know, with immigrant professionals and supporting them, the strong desire to get there as quickly as possible, you know, having also worked with populations that get there and then lose the job because they didn't learn, you know, some key things that help them keep it past 6 months or 12 months. And so that challenge of really supporting people in ways beyond what they can see in the immediate, simply because there's so many challenges, there's so many doors. But I did want to check in whether, you know, Stella, how has this been for you in support? I know we've got further boot camp sessions, and we're doing a session later this week specifically getting at like how to deal with the objections when you're approaching people and they say, yeah, but I don't know about this. So we'll have a session kind of to work through how to respond to that. Did you have any final questions or comments?
No, I don't have any question. I think it's pretty clear, and thank you so much for helping. It's helpful. I think we are almost there. I think hopefully it will be a success. That's what we are focusing on. So yeah, thank you so much.
So I appreciate all of you, because I learned how difficult to arrange for a mentoring, you know, program. And now, yeah, which challenges you have, you know, what difficulties are behind. Sometimes maybe mentees, you know, expectation is really higher than the program that they attend. I appreciate all of you guys, your attempts and trying to help the mentees.
I'll just say too, Stella, the call last time was a lot about recruitment and finding mentors too. And I wrote up an article and put a bunch of links, and there's a recording of it. So if you haven't seen that already, we can make sure we send that out with the one I'll do for this week too. And there might be some additional information that's really useful there.
Thank you so much.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for your time and showing up. And I know, you know, Doug and I get pretty excited when we start to see sort of this kind of culture emerging where we're just all really pulling for everyone's success and sharing towards that end. So it's great to see it happening on the call.
And I'm really thankful that Bao and Tyler were on today. Thank you so much, you guys, for, once again, it's, you know, we were just talking about earlier, it's great to have those testimonials from mentees when we're promoting our programs. But you know, it's also great to have other colleagues who are promoting mentorship programs on the line. It's a kind of a lonely world for us sometimes when we're running a mentorship program. And I just can't believe I got 2 colleagues sitting here, you know, and including Cheryl, of course. And yeah, just thanks for your guys' input. I mean, it's just that it's so different than when we started back in 2009, and we were by ourselves doing this, and now we've got a community of people. So Stella, you're part of this now. So
yeah, I'm in. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out if you do have other questions. You know, it doesn't always have to be a formal meeting like this. I'm always happy to connect and even just bounce ideas sometimes. I feel bad sometimes for poor Doug and Bruce for all the times I had to bug them with an email, but very grateful that they were always willing to help me. So I'm always willing to pass that forward to people too.
Thank you. Very appreciate it.
So if that's all right, you know, maybe I'll add your emails as well to the next push out from, so that that's easy for folks. So thanks for that generous offer.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
See you.
you.